One,
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. I have a very special treat for everybody out there for the weekend, the long Labor Day weekend coming up. Hope you guys are all doing something nice and getting on the road and getting out there. Yes, my special guest today.
Very special.
He's so special. And
It's unbelievably special.
I knew I was not going to be able to get through the intro.
Frighteningly special.
I have to tell a story about the last time John Cleese, my special guest, John Cleese is here, and Arwen Lewis. Hi, welcome both of you guys. I don't know if you need an introduction, John, and I don't think if you'll let me get through one, so I'm not going to try that. This time.
I sometimes get people to say, "Here's a man who needs no introduction, so I'm not going to give him one." It's always worked very well.
Well, I think because they probably have gotten to know you and you don't allow anybody to really give you an introduction. Well, at least not me. You've called me rascal a few times, and I'll take that. I love it. I want to tell the story, though, of the first time you were on the show real quickly, if I could. And I'm sure you're going to have a comment here. So I'm introducing John, and when I do the show, I do a lot of background, and I pull up, I write a nice bio, and I write a story, and I really think about my guests. So I did all this, and I'm taking it really seriously. And I start to introduce John, but I had found this top 50 comedians in the world list that was compiled by Hollywood, who's who, and all these great academics.
And I wasn't on it, right?
No, you were number 2.
Oh, come on.
See, that's what you did. So you were the second most on that list out of 50. You were number 2. And I start to say this, and you said, "Wait a minute, who's number 1?"
Yeah.
And
who was?
And then before your partner in Monty Python, Peter
Cook.
Yes.
Peter wasn't in Monty Python. Peter was a predecessor.
Well, see, I did the research.
For me, he was the greatest. But I think you'll find that was an English list, because I think very few people listening to this, except for the ones in London and Somerset, are going to know who Peter Cook was. But he was a genius, because it all came so easily to him, and it was quite irritating.
But do you remember what you said? When you said,
"No,
I'm number 2."
Yeah.
Who's number 1? And before I could answer, you said, "I hope he's dead." And
well, Peter is dead. You see, so I just moved up.
You didn't know who number 1 was, though, so you didn't know. And then exactly. And then I said, "Well, he is in fact passed away." And you said, "Well, then I'm number 1. What is this intro?" And it was off the rails from there. So this time to prepare.
Good.
Do my
Oh,
research.
no, you're going to read something.
No, this is how much I prepared. There's nothing here.
Oh, good.
It's a blank
good
page.
joke.
I'm just going to let John take over because he's going to do it anyway. John Cleese, welcome.
What do you want to talk about, dear man?
I want to talk about, well, first I'd like to talk about the tour. You were just on tour. You've done, actually, backing up from that.
I do a lot of stuff now in theaters. I like performing in theaters, and there's a certain predictability about it. You know when the tour starts, you know when the tour finishes. There's a guaranteed fee.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing is, if people buy tickets, they don't hate you. Nobody says, "I can't stand that man. He's not the slightest bit funny. Let's buy 6 tickets for his show." So you got a pre-selected audience that likes you. And then you go out, and there's a nice reception, and you make them laugh for a bit, depending a little bit on the audience. But in the bigger, more sophisticated cities, they laugh. And the further you get out in the sticks, the less they laugh, and the harder the work is. Like when Eric and I booked into El Paso once, and I mean, we could have been doing the whole show in Finnish for the impact that we had with these people, because the bad sign of an audience is when they start folding their arms. And by the end, every person in El Paso in that audience had his arms folded, because they were all there with their big hats.
So what you just said, that people, that they don't know, the audience.
Hang on. What do you want? I've never done this before. So you want me to look at myself? No. You want me to look there? No.
Slide to your right.
I thought this was a radio interview. What? You want me to slide to my eyes?
Closer to the
Okay. No. That's normally you don't get this problem on the radio.
Yeah, but this is the Jeremiah show. There's a lot of problems. that
All
come
right,
along.
how's that? Is that better?
That's-
Okay. Oh, that's for people who are watching the video,
That's right.
the ones driving, right? Yeah. Let's cause a few accidents then. Okay.
So El Paso, Texas, why do you suppose they bought the tickets if they
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, the last tour I did was in Europe, and I went as far north as northern Sweden, which is very far north. And I went as far south as Milan. I don't usually do Italy. As far west as Portugal. I did 6 shows there. And then I did 2 in Budapest.
how do you pick who picks the locations?
Well,
and-
whoever it is who knows all the European theaters, he's a very nice guy. He's actually a Persian guy, but he lives in Stockholm and he fixes the tours, and I'm very fond of him. But as I say, the second show in Budapest, again, we could have been doing it. I think they thought I was going to be performing in Hungarian, but my Hungarian is very rusty these days. So I was, and they're all sitting there. They all look as though they've just got out of the Russian army. You know what I mean? Ugly and overweight.
By the way, we're really
They're ugly and overweight, and they're sitting there in
there goes our
black
Hungarian
shorts.
audience.
They're man spreading. They've got dirty t-shirts, and I'm trying to make them laugh, and I'm failing miserably. But after a time, if you simply cannot get a laugh, it becomes funny. The awful thing is, if you try to make them laugh and they go, then you want to kill yourself. But if there's complete silence, after
becomes
a
a
time,
challenge.
you just start laughing. Like when a woman, I was doing a show in Florida, and we were doing Q&A at the end, and a very nice woman stood up. She was rather elegant, beautifully dressed. Mr. Cleese, may I ask you a serious question? I said, of course. She said, did the Queen kill Diana? Now, there was a stunned silence. It was a big house, about 2,000 people. You could hear a pin drop, except for me, because I was laughing. I was laughing my head off. I thought, this is...
See, I was laughing. I'm glad that was appropriate for me. Should I laugh?
But it was so funny because I thought, why does she think I know?
Right.
You know, because I'm British. All the British know whether the Queen killed Diana, but they're not telling anyone who hasn't got a passport. You know. So complete silence is very funny. It's the natural when people are trying to cheer you up by laughing. That's when you want to kill yourself.
You got a big birthday coming up, and you're going to one of your favorite places. In the
Oh
world.
yes, it's very exciting. I'm starting a tour with my beautiful daughter Camilla, who is very funny and very, very unkind
Very
to me,
funny.
with the audience love. And she and I are going to do a tour starting on, what is it, somewhere up in the Northeast somewhere. I think we start in Massachusetts, I think. And that's towards the end of October. And then we go on for about a month. We finish up in what's it called? The home of jazz in the South.
New Orleans?
No, not New Orleans. No, Tennessee. What's this? Memphis,
Yeah.
which is the best audience we ever had when we played there. So we're finishing up there because they want the bus back. It's not a joke.
Do you get your deposit back?
They want their bus back. And so we'll be doing that. And after that, I have no idea because, of course, with this strike, I've got a lot of projects on at the moment.
I wanna
Camilla
ask
and
you
I
about
are
that.
here in LA working with John Dupre, who wrote the music for the Wanda film. We're
Mhm.
working on a music for Wanda. And we've got an extraordinary guy called B.T. McNichol, who worked for 8 years with Mike Nichols, who is the greatest of the great. So
Wow.
you don't get a better qualification than that. We're trying to turn Fish Called Wanda, which I wrote, into a musical. And then I go back to London, where we're going to be doing a stage version of Life of Brian. I am really
You
looking
are
forward
busy.
to. Yeah,
You're
I'm
always
busy, but with all these old projects, you see, but
Mhm.
they're the only ones you can get finance for. I've written other ones, but anything new, nobody's interested in these days. You
Will
see.
you take those, as you put it, older projects and put a new spin on it in
Oh,
some way?
yes, I think so, because I don't want to just reproduce it.
Yeah.
And because I wrote one and had a big hand in writing the other, I feel I'm entitled to change it. So, for example, we don't crucify Brian at the end, I think. Everyone says, no, he has to be crucified and you have to have the song. And I want to say, well, everyone loves the song, but let's try and find a slightly different way of doing it instead of doing exactly what they can
Yeah.
see on the video in their own home. What's the point of them paying money to go to the theater when they can see it at home?
Did
So,
we just give out a spoiler alert? Do we need to edit that?
no, I don't mind because I haven't made up my mind yet. You
Yeah.
see, we won't be
So
doing that for
now-
the second half
now
of
it's a
next year. So we
tease.
got all that time to make up our mind about
You're a
how to
tease,
finish
John.
it. But also, I've written a lot of new stuff at the start, and I've incorporated a piece that Michael Palin wrote, which I think is hilarious, that was never in the film, and that's right at the start. And I'm really looking forward to working with that because there'll be a lot of actors, but mainly comics. And comics are more fun to work with than actors. You know, they're more interesting people. Actually, did you know that?
Well, why are they
I've
more
heard.
interesting though? Because I would think an actor's
Because-
really interesting.
Interesting too.
No, I
Just
don't-
not maybe not as fun.
Actors don't go to college. You know? They may be very famous and people may list them, but they didn't go to college, which on the whole means that they're not as bright as the you see, the comedians write their own material, actors don't.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. And I find that comedians, they've got a little bit, they're a bit ornery,
Yeah.
you know, and I like that. They're a bit bloody minded and they don't want to be pushed around. Whereas, you know, actors tend to have soft centers and they want everyone to love them, which is why they can be quite boring in interviews. You know?
Would you look, but you're an actor and you're a
No, I'm
writer.
not. I'm a writer performer. People never
Performer.
understood this, but if you want to understand Monty Python, they were 6 writers who happened to perform.
Okay.
And we didn't improvise because we'd written the damn thing. When we were improvising while we were writing it, yes.
So you don't want actor next year. You want performer.
I love performers, but the interesting thing about comedy is if you come across a great comedy actor who is also a great straight actor, and you say, which is the more difficult, 100 out of 100 say comedy is the difficult one. Michael Gambon, for example, is a superb actor and wonderfully funny. And he said to me once, comedy is much, much harder than straight acting. But people don't know that, which is why they always give the awards to the straight actors.
Why do you think that is as a
Um,
performer?
because most people are fairly stupid.
Well, you've proved them wrong in A Fish Called Wanda, right?
Yeah,
Kevin
Did you
Kline
know-
won an Academy Award.
Did you
he
know
did, and that's
you
so
have-
rare.
She has the Fish Called Wanda fan club. She runs it.
Yes.
She
It's
answers
me.
all the mail. Arwen Lewis here. She
Well,
answers all the fan mail.
It's very good.
She
you
opens
know.
all the
I
letters.
watched it again recently.
So-
And it still stands up. And there's a funny thing. And remember the scene where I'm dangled out of the window?
Yes, and you're
That
upside
was
down.
the first time that my daughter Camilla, who now works with me, the first time she ever saw me on a film set. I was dangling
Oh my
upside down out of a 6th
How old
floor
was she?
window.
How old
And
was
she sort of said, "His daddy's supposed to be doing that."
Daddy's supposed
How old
to-
was Camilla? At
She's
the
about 7.
7.
Oh my gosh. Well, that movie, and well, Kevin Kline's so funny too when he pops in the window and he's like, "Don't call me stupid."
He's
Like,
just,
yeah.
he's such a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful actor, that man. I had to present him with an award once at some award ceremony. And I was talking about him and I said, Kevin, there's one thing you need to understand. You're a very, very good actor, but you're a great over actor.
And you're not a performer.
How did you choose the cast for that? Did you choose the actors? or
Well,
how did that
yes, I
happen?
did. I met Kevin. I'd seen Sophie's Choice, and I just thought he was extraordinary. And then I was in Australia, and a guy who produced Wanda, Michael Schamberg, said, "You're in Australia, Kevin." And we had dinner together. I remember in the open air, and I just thought, I love this guy. And sometimes when it's an odd impulse, but when you see someone that you think is extraordinary, you think, I'd love to work with him. So I wrote that part for him, and I had an idea for it because I just got a copy of Los Angeles magazine. There was a double-page advertisement for a sort of spiritual retreat weekend with a guy who was called Grand Master Das, I think it was, and he an odd, sort of rather uncomfortable-looking 30-year-old with spots. And it was his picture there. And I just thought, this is terribly funny. And then I saw the strap line at the bottom, and the strap line was, "Buddhism gives you the competitive edge." And I thought, this is hilarious. This is a man who has read everything and understood nothing. So that was his character. And then I had this idea about somebody stuttering and not being able to give him very important information because he could. And
The best
I
part.
asked Michael Palin to do it because Michael had a dad with a terrible stutter.
Oh.
And that's why he's so funny in that scene when he's trying to tell me about the Cathcart Towers, you know. And then Jamie, I was assuming that would be an English actor. And then my oldest daughter, who was at that time was about 10, wanted to see a movie called Trading Places. And I sat down and didn't know anything about it. And then Jamie walked on the screen. And I thought to myself, there's an energy there. You can't define it, but there's just something about the way she walked. And I thought, who is this? I didn't know her because I hadn't watched horror movies. And I just thought she's just terrific. And then I watched the rest of the film, and she's funny. And I thought, this is exactly what we want for Wanda. And I asked somebody what she liked to work with, and they said she's the sort of woman who on her day off goes and gets pizza for the crew. And I thought, that's nice. We'll ask her.
Oh.
Fun fact, I almost got rear-ended by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh,
True story.
how did that
Really?
happen?
This close.
Oh. Well, how did you know it was her?
Because I looked in the rear mirror and she was basically in my back seat.
Oh my gosh.
Big, huge Mercedes. I wanted to go back to Kevin Kline. You went out to dinner with him and you said, I just knew there was something about.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that thing was where you engaged, where you said, this
Well,
is
I
the
think
guy?
there was something about the
What did
way
he
he
do?
did the conducting scene in Sophie's Choice, and then I'd heard that he'd been a big star of a Broadway comedy called something like the 20th Century on the 20th Century. But I mean, when we got together,
The
you know,
connection.
sometimes you're with someone and
Mhm.
just the conversation flows. You're never thinking what you're going to say next. And I adore the man and stuff. But the trouble is, he lives in New York, and I live in hotel rooms, so I don't see him very much. No, I do live in a hotel. Last year I was in London for 6 weeks, and I was in hotel rooms for 46 weeks. So I know a lot about hotels, and a lot of them aren't very good. The first thing you have to know about hotels is they're basically run for the convenience of the staff. Once you've accepted that if you can fit your schedule around the staff schedule, you'll be able to be all right.
Hilarious.
Daughter Camilla Cleese says of her father, he's a legend of comedy. He's the founding member of a British comedy troupe, Monty Python. And I want to know why. Here's straight off her Facebook page. She says John Cleese's tour begins next week. Don't miss your chance to see comedy legend John Cleese. No, so sorry, I messed that up. See, comedy is hard. With the late John Cleese is what she writes.
Well, I thought I wanted to get people's attention, and what people don't understand is that if you can make them smile or laugh that you get their attention for another split second. Like when I announced the tour of Australia, which finished only about 3 weeks ago, I misspelled all the towns. Do you see what I mean?
On purpose?
On purpose.
On purpose.
Oh my God. People in a town will go after you, won't they? Like
Well, no,
you-
because the people who like my stuff have got a sense of humor.
yeah.
So I came up with all these things. You could work out what the town was. It was just I'd spilled its name. Instead of Brisbane, I called it Brosbant or something like that. And everybody was amused by it, and everybody told their friends because they made them laugh. So they bought lots of tickets. And sometimes, if you don't take things too seriously, you can get people's attention much better. And most people in
I love it.
advertising don't get that because they're so serious about their product. They can't imagine anyone could be slightly flippant about it.
The great John Cleese is in studio in Santa Barbara. Welcome home. Welcome home to Santa
I came
Barbara.
up today to see you, Jeremiah. Do you want to say why?
We probably shouldn't yet,
Yes,
but we had a great lunch.
we had a great lunch.
Let's keep teasing them.
What?
Let's tease everybody. I don't know. Well, let's take a break. We'll come right back with great John Cleese. You mean as far as the club, Sean? Is that what you're referring to?
Are we in break now?
We're in break.
Okay.
Yeah, we're back up on break.
I wasn't.
Yeah,
clear
I
on
don't
that
know if we should.
phrase.
If you're
If we
not
wanna do
happy,
that
we
big
won't
blowout,
talk about it.
we
I'm
wanna do
fine.
that
I'm
big-
easy. You
And I
do
don't-
what you're
Well, I don't
comfortable
want you to
with.
harass yet. We were gonna. Yeah, let's wait till
We'll do
great
that
John
in another
Cleese.
one.
If you don't
Okay.
mind. So we got probably 2 more 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
roughly.
This is so. You got to ask your questions. when
Oh,
we come
yes,
back. Let me. I'll
Go
do
on.
it.
Can I interview you?
I'll
Yes.
Is that
interview.
okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
Arwen's good. I'll bring us back and then I'll toss it to you. Spelled the names wrong, but I bet a lot of the towns.
What?
Actually, I bet a lot of the people in the town at
There was
first.
only one woman was
what-
upset. And
One
I
woman.
spelled Carpenter.
One woman
once, and I
wrote
never
saying
did
that it was snotty and I shouldn't be a partner. And I said, you must be the only person in Australia without a good
And once when
Didn't
Were you
get-
almost waiting for someone like that to come
No,
at you?
no, but if they come at me rudely,
Yeah.
I let them have it. A guy said that.
Yeah, rightly so.
Somebody said to me the other day, because I'd suggested that Prigozhin had been murdered by Putin. I said that, and he said there's not a shred of evidence for this, and you're probably saying that because you're just a comedian. And I said I've been a comedian for 60 years, and I met an awful lot of comedians, and there were not a single one of them was as dumb as you.
All right, we need to start.
Okay.
In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. The off air is just as good as on air. I've got John Cleese in Santa Barbara. Welcome back to your almost a hometown.
Well, I was here
home away from
for,
home.
I bought a place here in 94, and then I moved here permanently in 99, and I stayed here until my third divorce. But I had to pay my dear ex-wife 20 million. So we had to sell everything up here. She got 2 of the properties. I got none of them because that's the way the law works. You know, the passenger is the one who does really well in a divorce.
Yeah. So I don't know who set up my chair here in the studio, but this is like I feel like I'm at the kids' table at Thanksgiving. It's not intimidating enough to have to interview John Cleese, but I'm like 3 feet shorter than him here in the studio.
Yeah, I feel
And
taller
Arwen,
too.
I'm
Yeah,
like
this is
looking
nice.
up at you guys.
Yes.
Thanks. Did you do this to me on purpose? This is comedy right here. John, welcome back again. And Arwen, you she runs the fan club. If you missed this, she runs a fan
Yeah.
club for all of John Cleese's movies.
Mhm.
And she sings and she writes songs and
She does it all.
Well, I'll have to write a song of, a fish called Wanda. I'll have to make it dramatic though. It'll be the dramatic spin, about
Right.
the bank robbery and everything,
Oh,
right? It could be
yes,
a
yeah.
blues, jazz,
Yeah.
murder ballad or something. But so I thought I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with the storyline?
Well, I'll talk about this because I've actually written a little book about creativity, which is called Creativity.
Yes. Mhm.
It's not a very imaginative title, and it's all about the randomness of the creative process. But what really happened is that somebody told me that there was a wonderful con trick played was somebody found or bought a black pearl, which is very unusual. And so he went to a jeweler and he said to the jeweler, I want you to match this pearl and I don't mind what it costs. Right? You just match it, and then make it into a pair of earrings for my wife. He only had the one. So he went away for a few weeks and the jewelers all went around and said, you're looking for a black pearl? Yeah, why don't he wants a black pearl. What's the size of black pearl? And then he goes into another jeweler's and he said, you got any interest in this black pearl? The jeweler goes, ching, 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 ching. Yeah, maybe I could sell this. So then he gets a much bigger price for the single black pearl that he would ever have got to be sold it as a single. And I thought that is, so I started with that and it had nothing to do with what I finished up with. Nothing at all, but it started like that. Then I thought I want a scene where Michael Palin, who does his dad had a stutter when he's got this scene where he's trying to tell somebody something very urgently and he cannot get the word out. And then there was a continuation of the scene because I said, well, write it down. We couldn't find a pen that worked and all this kind of. And I told the director, whom I adored, Charlie Crichton, who was a wonderful old director, I said that, and I said, well, should we put that in our film, Charlie? Because we'd agreed we'd make a film together. And he said, yes. He said, you should talk like that. And I said, have you got an idea? And he said, yes. I want to run someone over with a steamroller. So we started with a stuttering scene. Somehow we finished up with Wanda. Because when you're creating, you just play and you don't try to control it. It's just where your mind takes you. And you need to let the unconscious take over and do a lot of it for you. Instead of what we're taught in school, you don't sit there beating your brains out with your brain, with your forehead furrowed and thinking hard. A lot of creativity is exactly the opposite. I mean, Billy Wilder, somebody was telling me, a great, great comedy director, if he was working with someone, they got stuck, he'd say, let's play cards. One of the great writing duos, Galton and Simpson in England, they always used to play a board game if they got stuck, instead of beating their brains out. And that way you let the brain relax. And I tell you what, it's a little bit like the tip of the tongue. You know when you can't think of a name and it drives you mad, and you follow it and you follow it and it just keeps going away. And then if you suddenly say, I'm not interested anymore, 5 minutes later, you get the name. Now, what's that about? That's not about beating your brains out. It's about figuring out how to work with your unconscious. And that's what this little book is all about. It's all about letting the mind play. And the key word to it is play, because a lot of people don't know how to play, especially people who want to be very important.
Do we lose the ability to play?
Yes, we do, because
the
in
naturalness of it, but it's
yes,
not
I mean,
natural
kids
anymore.
all play.
Right.
And if you went to them and said, you're not playing properly, they look at you and think, they know how to play. And then we put them into schools, and not through cruelty or discipline, but we just let them know that playing isn't real thinking. Real thinking involves furrowed brows and staying up late. And it's the opposite for creativity. All the research that's been done in creativity, the people who are creative are people who can play. So you have to really go back and start playing again. But if you ask yourself, why do kids play? The answer is because they don't have to mind the shop. Mom is making dinner. Daddy's making the money. The kids don't have those concerns. So when you want to play, you have to get away mentally from all the little jobs and tasks you have to do. You close the door and you switch off the phone, and then you sit there and you think, I'm going to let my mind play. And then you think, I should have called Bob. And then you think, I forgot to buy a birthday present for the cat. And then you remember you were supposed to mend the car. And so you have to, it's like meditation. You have to have a period when all those thoughts go. I take out a yellow sticky and I write it down. birthday present for Cat. You see what I mean? And then I can forget it. And ever so slowly, your mind settles, and then you start playing with the idea that you want to have an idea about
How often do you play?
a lot of the time. And it means I work far less hard than I used to, because I do about an hour and a half in the morning,
Is
10
that
till
okay?
11:30. Then I have a coffee. Then I sit down at 12 and I go till 1. Then I'll start again at 4 and do about another hour and a half.
Is that okay for you? Do you feel
That
like I've
works for
missed
me.
work?
Yeah.
I'm not, or do you feel like this is okay? This
Well,
is
all that
another way?
matters is, am I putting stuff down on the paper that's any good?
Well, I got an opportunity. We get just a little background for today. We've been hanging out probably 5 hours, and you're really sick of me. I know. You told me off air. He's ready to get
Well,
back
I'm
on
not
the
sick of
freeway.
you. I'm just bored with
Just
you.
bored.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is even worse. Could you please be sick of me? But I watched your mind today, John. I'm sorry if I was observing you. I can tell you now, I think, but I watched your mind work, and I watched different people come in and out of your existence, your area, and I saw you create scenes. You created stories and scenes, right?
Yeah.
And,
Did I?
and yes, you
How do you
did.
mean exactly?
From the servers coming through, you came up with just different jokes, and you had
Well, I'll tell you
concepts.
what,
Let's
it's
like
play.
the dessert cart with the
Oh yes,
the
that's-
devil,
Yeah, that's-
that
you see,
pushes
I
the cart
love
around.
play, and I give the
dressed as the
following
devil.
example. Some people play. The Irish are very playful. So I arrive in Dublin. I'm met off the plane. They take me to the car. The driver is going to drive me to the hotel. And I shake hands and I say to him, I understand you have an alcohol problem. And he looks at me and he says, oh no, Mr. Cleese, I spill very little when I'm driving. Now,
He's like,
this is superb.
Yeah.
But if I'd said to him, hello, how nice, thank you for driving, we wouldn't have had so much fun.
Right.
So it's a question. I read a
So-
book about the Marx Brothers. This was Groucho Marx. He would go into a fruit store and immediately tell them he didn't want to buy their fruit because it was all wax. And that way you have fun and people come to life because they're not having to obey rules, you know?
Yeah, so I saw that. I witnessed that. I've seen that today, and that's probably the highlight for me of the day, to get to know you that in that way, and to kind of watch your genius, right, Arwen? You were there.
It's not genius.
Well, it
It's
is.
just I know
Then
how
what-
to play.
Then what is it? I
And
mean,
an
it's
awful-
brilliance.
A lot of people don't know how to play.
But you know where to
because-
find that. You know where to find that moment, and did say something like,
Well, that's because I've done it
I-
a lot. It's like anything. You want to get somebody
it's an
good at.
engagement, though. It's more than that. It's a connection that
Well,
you're
it's a
finding.
connection with people, because if you look at people and pay attention to them for the moment, they are aware that you're two human beings making gentle contact with each other. Hmm?
Oh, I hate to take a break at this moment, but we'll take a quick break, and I think that's so important right
Well,
now.
I have to go now anyway.
missing-
'Cause I'm
Well, I'm
really, really bored with
I'm
you.
very-
Goodbye.
I'm your driver, so I don't think you're going to make it far. But all right, we'll be right back because we want to get John home. Be right back.
All right.